All right, with talks underway in Washington now, how close are we to something of a concrete plan? Let's turn to Bill Blair, the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness. Minister, very good to have you on the program. Okay, so we have a month, we don't have a day. When exactly will land borders with the U.S. Open to Canadians?
Yeah, well, as always, Katie Simpson's very well informed. And what the Americans have advised us is, and they have not given a precise date, but that they will implement changes at their land border and effective in early November. And they have not provided an exact date, but there's ongoing work going on, David, between there's a Canada-U.S. working operations group that is working through the logistics because there's a great deal of collaboration that goes on between our two borders, and we anticipate we'll have that date in the next few days, but they've got a bit of work to do, and they're working through it.
Okay, so a lot of details, as you say, have to be ironed out. Let's go through what Katie was talking to us about. First of all, there's the return testing requirement. So for day travelers going over the border, whether they're going shopping or visiting family, whatever they're doing, it's really hard to go and get a PCR test and get the results back. You'd almost have to do it right away and then wait hours and hours and hours, and you have to pay a lot of money to get the rapid turnaround time. What happens to Canadians? Is there the potential that those returning to Canada or those traveling to Canada will not have to get a test so long as they are fully vaccinated?
Yeah, first of all, the test is based on the advice that we've received from the Public Health Agency of Canada. And over the past several months, it has proven to be a very effective test that has determined whether or not people can safely enter the country and are required to isolate or quarantine. But just if I may offer some clarification, if someone's going to day trip, a Canadian wants to day trip in the United States once they've allowed non-essential travel into their country, and they're fully vaccinated, they'll be able to get their test in Canada, and that test will be good for 72 hours. So if they want to just go over and do some shopping, it'll be relatively straightforward for them to return to Canada using the results of that test. If they're going to be in the United States or out of Canada for a longer period of time, they still are going to require a negative PCR test and to present that results upon re-entry into Canada. That applies not just to Canadians, but American travelers and all foreign nationals coming to the country. Again, David, it's based on the advice we've received from the Public Health Agency of Canada at all times. The restrictions and the exemptions that we've put in place have been based on that scientific advice, and we're going to continue to follow it.
Okay, let me jump in on you just to be very clear about what you're saying, because I think you're actually making news here. You're saying that people who cross the border, Canadians who cross the border when that land border is reopened, they could get a test 2 days. Within that 72-hour window, they could get the test in Canada before they leave and then use that same test to re-enter.
Yes, that's correct, David. We're going to allow that test to remain valid for 72 hours, and that could involve multiple trips. But if they're going to be out of the country for a longer period of time, they'll have to get a test from that country.
Okay. Including the United States in this case. All right.
Including the United States.
Yeah. Look, can we talk about the mixed doses here for a moment? A lot of Canadians out there got mixed doses. They don't know whether the CDC is going to accept it. We heard Katie saying the calls keep going, the calls keep going. What if you got AstraZeneca as your first dose, Pfizer and Moderna as the second? When do you expect the Americans to give us some clarity about basically whether people are going to have to go out and get a third shot to be able to travel into the United States?
Yeah, thanks, David. It's an excellent question, and I know a lot of Canadians are concerned, and they have that question of us. First of all, I would tell them on October the 9th, the CDC announced and confirmed that they would acknowledge all of the vaccines that are currently approved for use in Canada, including AstraZeneca. So if people are fully vaccinated with AstraZeneca, they'll be allowed under the CDC guidelines, which are accepted by the United States. The CDC has not yet issued guidelines with respect to mixed dosage. In conversations that our government has had, and Ambassador Hillman has had most recently last night, we've offered to provide the CDC with all the data and evidence and studies that have been conducted on the efficacy of mixed dosage in Canada. And I will tell you, David, the results are very, very positive. And so while we remain quite optimistic, it's still the Americans are going to await the final advice that they receive from CDC, and we're sharing data and evidence and information with CDC to help them come to that determination.
Yeah, so I get what you're saying. There's emerging science that says it turns out the mixing doses and the longer interval was actually a really good idea. It hasn't been fully peer reviewed. You're sharing that with the United States, trying to convince them that Canadians who are mixed dose should be able to cross. But do you have any sense of the timeline? Like, will we expect to know that before this land border reopens for non-essential travel?
And again, I don't want to get ahead of the advice that the CDC will give to the American government, but they have that information. They're well aware that it's an issue of concern. We've had communications with them. I remain optimistic, but at the same time, I'm not going to get ahead of their decision. They'll make it. Hopefully, they'll make it in a timely way. We're hoping to have that information for Canadians before the end of this month, because as we've been told, early next month in November, the Americans are going to open up their borders to non-essential traveler for fully vaccinated Canadians coming into their country. And so we'll continue to work with them and hopefully get that information in a timely way for them.
What's going to happen to the borders? Are they going to get really busy?
Yeah, well, we anticipate that, first of all, November 26th is the American Thanksgiving. We know that that's a huge travel day in the United States, but we've actually employed a phased approach here in Canada. You remember in July, we allowed fully vaccinated Canadians to begin to enter the country without quarantine. Then we moved up in August to allow fully vaccinated Americans, and then in September to fully vaccinated foreign nationals. In the learning and the logistics of that phased approach taught us a lot about how to manage those increased flows that resulted from that. We've shared that information with our American counterparts. There's really close collaboration particularly between the Customs Border Patrol in the United States and our CBSA officers here. They meet on a regular basis. They're sharing that information. I remain confident that we are going to see increased travel volumes. I think there's a pent-up demand for travel.
Yeah, I mean, it was mayhem at Pearson when they reopened the air border to non-essential.
Well, you know what? There were some pressures that we experienced over several days, but I think you'll acknowledge that it has been increasingly well managed by our border officers and by the public health officials, and particularly at land border, we have not seen very significant impacts because our people have done I think an exceptional job of managing it. We'll continue to make sure that the resources are there in order to manage what we anticipate will be increased flows. We also know that there's a lot of Canadians waiting to find out if they can go down to Florida or Arizona for their winter holidays, and so that's something we'll be working very carefully so that we are able to manage it as efficiently as it can be done.
Okay, let me ask you just before I let you go about international travel beyond the United States. The European Union's had a vaccine passport to allow travel very easily, continent-wide. They've had it since the summer. Where's ours? When's it coming?
Well, ours is certainly under development, and as you know, the data that we would rely upon to actually populate that database for a international vaccine passport is resident with the provinces. We're working with the provinces in order to build that. You know, our officials have been ongoing in that work. We recognize, David, that it's important. People want some kind of a recognized, internationally recognized vaccine passport that determines, their eligibility to travel. I think many countries are going to adopt the requirement of full vaccination to allow travel. And so we've been working diligently for that. For everyone coming to Canada, we have used an interim measure, the ArriveCan app, that has proven to be very effective to provide our border officials with the information they need to verify the full vaccination of international travelers. And we're working very hard right now, and I anticipate in the coming months, and it shouldn't be many months, but we've got some work to do with the provinces and with their health officials in order to gain access to that data and to develop a product that will be recognized internationally. The situation in Europe, and I agree, they've done some excellent work there, but the European Union is essentially a borderless environment, and so somewhat different to manage. We're in a cooperative confederation, and we're cooperating with our provincial partners in order to get that job done. Okay,
but give me a timeline here. It's mid-October this year?
Yeah, certainly. I'm very hopeful that we'll have it done before the end of this year. Again, we don't yet have agreements in place with all the provinces, but that work has been ongoing for some period of time, and I remain confident we're going to get it done. So certainly, it is our intention to have the utility of that document available to Canadian travelers before the end of the year.
All right, Minister Blair, thanks very much for your time this afternoon.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, David.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.